Hello, and thank you for joining us for this very important webinar entitled NWC's New Rate Structure for 2018-2023 is Coming, What You Need to Know, put on by the Office of Utilities Regulation. My name is Elizabeth Bennett-Marsh, and I'm the Public Education Specialist at the OUR, and I'll be your moderator for today. Pursuant to the OUR Act, the OUR is empowered to regulate the supply and distribution of water and the provision of sewerage services. The National Water Commission is allowed to submit a tariff review application to the OUR every 5 years. One is due now for the 2018-2023 period. So today's webinar is intended to afford you a better understanding of the processes and procedures employed by the OUR in assessing the application submitted by the NWC, as well as the importance of consumer empowerment. To achieve this objective today, we have put together a group of panelists who will be integral in analyzing the NWC's application once submitted. To my immediate right, I have the Director of Regulation, Policy, Monitoring and Enforcement at the OUR, Cedric Wilson. Welcome, Cedric.
Thank you very much.
Besides Cedric is a Senior Regulatory Analyst at the OUR, Sashana Miller. Thank you for joining us, Sashana.
Thank you, Elizabeth.
To Sashana's right is a member of the Consumer Advisory Committee on Utilities, CACU, Devon Gale.
Thank you, Liz. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
And last but not least, Consumer Affairs Specialist in charge of policy at the OUR, Colette Good. Thanks, Liz. The format for today's webinar is as follows. There will be brief presentations by each panelist, followed by a discussion and a question and answer session. So we want to hear from you. We want you to send in your questions to us. It's very important. So we have allocated some media through which you can communicate with us. If you're joining us on our Facebook page, simply type in your questions below in the comment section. If you're joining us on Facebook Live, we do have accommodations for you as well, so simply put your questions there, we will get them. And of course, WhatsApp. Communicate with us via our WhatsApp number, 876-316-2647. That's 876-316-2647. We'll repeat that number as we go along. Without further ado, we'll start with Cedric Wilson, who will tell us why the OUR conducts this 5-year tariff process and give an overview of the tariff process and major elements of the tariff structure. Cedric, over to you.
Thank you very much, Liz, and thanks for joining us. I should say that the first question that would come to anybody's mind is why regulate in the first place? And regulation for utilities is something that the OUR does in terms of the economics. And we regulate primarily because there are some entities, some markets that you cannot leave them to their own device. Important services like water and electricity, where you have a monopolist involved, if you allow them to their own device, according to theory, is that prices might be very high and some people might not be able to access these services. So for that reason, the regulator is really into the market to create conditions as if competition exists. The objectives of regulation, and we are economic regulators, are to ensure sustainability. When we talk about sustainability, what we are talking really about is the survival of the firm in the long run. So we have to balance the objectives, right? The objectives of profitability on the part of the firm, which the firm needs a profit in order to stay in business in the long run, a reasonable profit. But at the same time, profit can be so high that it makes the service inaccessible to customers. So sustainability is important. Productivity and efficiency is also important, because without efficiency, costs will be very high. And then there's the whole concept of allocative efficiency. When we talk about allocative efficiency, what we are talking about is who get what service and what price they pay for those services. And it is very important that people are paying the right price for the service that they access, just to be fair. So in that respect, cost should be, the prices should be cost reflective. And this fourth element, the fourth objective is the question of equity. When we say equity, we're not meaning equality, so to speak. The fact of the matter is, because of income distribution and certain people's circumstances, some people might be able to pay a higher price for a service while others are not able to pay it. So all of those things have to be factored into the tariffs ultimately. So these are important objectives for the OUR. Actually, we have 3 types of reviews, or adjustments to be more precise. One, there is a periodic review, and I think Liz alluded to a 5-year review for the NWC. And along with that periodic review, which is 5 years long, every year we have an annual review where we look at the tariffs and try to keep them at the same level in real terms. And there are also monthly adjustments, which I'm certain that Sashana will be talking to, where we have monthly price adjustments for certain elements of the tariff. But she will get into that later. But the tariff process, there are really 3 elements in the tariff process. One, there's the acceptance of the application. Well, for that to happen, naturally, the NWC would have to apply for a tariff. But we have to accept that tariff, and it has to be accepted on the basis of a number of things that are included in their submission with respect to costs, with respect to the production figures, and a number of other things, efficiencies, all of that. Then there is the analysis of the submission, where a team of people are assigned within the OUR to look through the various aspects of the application and make an assessment. And then finally, there is the approval of the determination. What normally happens, and invariably this happens for all utilities, when application comes in, they usually ask a pretty high rate. I can't think of anybody submitting an application for a lower rate. But we have to look at every component of it and see whether or not what is being requested, whether it is fair, whether or not it is reasonable, whether or not it is justified. And on that basis, the office makes a decision with regards to that application. I should also mention that consultations are an important part of the tariff process, and from time to time, once an application has been made, there will be town hall meetings to discuss the various issues, be they technical, public, or personal, with respect to the application itself. And those things are not taken for granted. In making the determination, we factor what comes out of a consultation into that determination process. Just to say quickly, and I don't want to get into a lot of details about it, is that the tariff is done on the basis of a number of things. You have to look at NWC's production costs, their transmission costs. When we say transmission, the cost of moving water along the pipes or the mains. There is depreciation, and depreciation is really capital consumption. There's taxes, and there's a rate of return. And all of these elements are included in the tariff. And the rate of return is based on what we call a rate base, all the assets that the company has. And then there's a percentage associated with it, which is the rate of return And when we multiply those two together, you get the rate of return. But I won't get into all of that, given that we don't have all day. But in coming to a conclusion on the tariff, there are several things that we bear in mind. Objectivity, reliability. We have to depend on the expertise in order to come to conclusions that are correct and well-informed. The decisions that we make, they have to be consistent. We can't say one thing in one determination and another thing in another determination. That is not good regulatory practice, of course. And the information that NWC submit for us to use it, it has to be relevant and it has to be recent. You can't talk about tariff determination in 2018 when you are providing 2008 information. So the information that we make our decision on, it has to be current and relevant and consistent, and all of those important attributes need to be attached to them. And finally, in coming down with the final determination, there's a lot to talk about fake news and all of that sort of thing. We have to base our determination on facts, what information is there, past, present, and projected in the future. We have to base it on values. And when I talk about value, the utility might make a submission and say, we want to do a particular project. But then we have to look at the project and ask ourselves, will it be valuable to customers? What are the merits associated with it? And then finally, the question of policy. Policy is very important. Policy is usually determined by the government, and policies, we have to factor those things. So for example, if the government has a particular objective of achieving full access to water in a particular year, what we need to do as regulator is to include the assets or the things that are necessary to make that policy achievable. So basically, those are the important things I think is worth saying at this point about tariff application, about the tariff process. And I guess we'll be talking. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Cedric. So from the big picture, we now drill down to how all these considerations that Cedric just talked about impact you, the customer. And for that, we turn to our senior regulatory analyst, Sashana Miller, who will talk about your utility bill. How will your bill be impacted by any decision that the OUR makes on the OUR's and the NWC's application? What is PAM? What is K factor, X factor? And does the OUR's decision on the NWC's tariff impact those line items? Sashana, over to you.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Well, Cedric has outlined the groundwork upon which the OUR conducts its tariff review. So I'll just take you through understanding your bill and the different charges and factors that are found on your bill. So if you have your bill nearby, you can take it out and follow as I go along. On a typical bill, you'll have your metering details, and then there are some current charges. Your current charges would be your water charge or your sewage charge, if any. These are your volumetric charges. Then there's a service charge. There's a price adjustment mechanism, or PAM for short. There's an X factor, and there's also a K factor. Looking at the service charge first. What is this service charge that occurs monthly on your bill? The service charge is a fixed sum that is related specifically to costs associated with water supply infrastructure and operations. So the OUR would look at your meter reading costs, your billing preparation costs, and all other billing related costs that the NWC incurs, and this would feed into the calculation of your service charge. Currently, the service charge is $830 for a typical residential customer that has a 5/8-inch meter. Some may say, why do I pay a service charge if I do not have or consume any water? The logics of having a service charge is that you will benefit from the infrastructure that the NWC has, even though you're not demanding that service. The volumetric charge. So there are two main types of volumetric charges. There's water volumetric charge, and there's sewage volumetric charge. The NWC volumetric charge is based on an increase in block structure, where the more water you consume, the more you would pay for your typical water bill. If you turn to the back of your bill, the NWC outlines its block structure, or the different bands within which the rates vary for water and sewage. So for example, there are 6 consumption bands or block structure. The first, which is 0 to 14,000 liters, can be considered as a lifeline rate. The lifeline rate currently is $103.67 per liter, or 471.49 per gallon. By way of example, say you use 24,000 liters of water. How would my volumetric charge be calculated? Well, on the previous slide, the first 14,000 liters will be calculated at the lifeline rate, which is $103.67, which would give you a total of 1,451.38. And then the remaining 10 liters will be calculated as 182.80, which is the second band. In all, your volumetric charges alone would be 3,279.38 if you use 24,000 liters. There are some other factors that are also found on your bill. There's the PAM, price adjustment mechanism for short. What this is just the weighted average of the changes in economic variables such as inflation, exchange rate, and electricity prices. There's also let's do the K factor first. There's also the K factor. The K factor is actually a special fund that goes towards contribution to the NWC for their capital development program. There's the X factor. We're saying if you improve your capital infrastructure, then you'll be getting back some efficiency gains through operations. And the X factor is a clawback in efficiency gains that are passed on to you, the consumers. PAM. The PAM is calculated monthly, and it compensates the NWC for changes in input factors over which it has no control. So on your typical bill, you may see 1 month the PAM can be positive, and the PAM can also be negative. The X factor. Currently, the X factor is set at 6.20%, and is collected by the NWC monthly. This is a deduction from the bill after the normal rates and the PAM. The K factor is currently 16%. This is an addition to your bill, and it is calculated and reflected on your bill every month. So the overall bill impact is that you'll see your water charges, your sewage charges, which are based on your consumption pattern. There's a service charge, which is fixed, irrespective of your water use. There's the PAM, which can be negative or positive, depending on the economic indications. There's the X factor, which is set at 6.20, and this is a deduction from your bill. Then there's the K factor, which is a 16% addition. And that would give you your total current charge for the month. Elizabeth.
Thank you very much, Sashana. It was important for us to explain exactly how what line items on your bill will be impacted by any decision that the OUR makes. But another significant part of the review of the NWC's application will be assessing the quality of service components. How does the NWC or the OUR hold the NWC accountable for service standards to customers? Consumer Affairs Specialist at the OUR, Colette Good, will be examining that aspect of the NWC's application and will tell us more about what the process entails. Colette.
Indeed. Thank you, Liz. Now, in addition to the process, the aspects of the process that was outlined by Cedric, as well as the inputs into the rates, as was discussed by Sashana, the NWC tariff review process also includes an assessment of the areas that focuses on consumers. And these areas include looking at the quality of service delivered by the NWC, as well as emerging issues that are deemed to have far-reaching impact and that we will need to address. Now, quality of service relates to the guaranteed standards as well as the quality of service performance targets that have been set for the NWC. Consumers should be aware that the Guaranteed Standard Scheme prescribes certain service levels that the NWC ought to achieve, and if they fail to abide by those service levels, then compensation is paid to the affected customer. While the performance targets also prescribe service levels to be attained by the NWC, there is no compensation mechanism in place for affected customers where the targets are not met. So what will be involved with respect to the review of our quality of service? The quality of service review will involve an assessment of the NWC's performance against the guaranteed standards, as well as the performance targets. We will be assessing the NWC's performance against each of the guaranteed standards, as well as the targets. We will be deciding on whether we need to make any changes to the standards or targets. And we will also decide whether there needs to be any changes that needs to be made to the standards. Now, the OUR also uses this opportunity at the time of a tariff review to engage consumers, and specific to this one, it will be you, the NWC consumers, to get information on the service, on the service issues that you are facing, and particularly those that are not currently covered by the guaranteed standards or the performance targets. So as was mentioned by Cedric, we host public meetings and we invite customers to come and share their experience with respect to service delivery, as well as any concerns that they have in relation to service delivery. Careful note is taken of the experience and concerns that are raised, and we will decide on any appropriate measure that ought to be implemented to address those concerns. In addition to the information that we get from the public meetings, though, we also conduct a review of the contacts that we receive from NWC customers at the OUR during the review period, which is 2013 to 2018. And we do that to see whether there are other issues that needs to be addressed through the tariff review process that were not raised at the public consultations. The discussion on these issues and solutions will be included in the OUR's final determination under the heading Consumer Chapter. So it is critical for consumers to share their views by participating in this very important process.
Thank you very much, Colette. If you're just joining us, just a reminder that we are having a special webinar examining the NWC's new rate structure, not examining, but alerting you that the NWC's new rate structure for 2018-2023 is coming. what you need to know. So we just want to indicate to you that we are expecting to accept shortly an application from the National Water Commission for a tariff review. They are allowed to submit an application every 5 years. What are the processes that are involved? The role of consumer advocacy in the upcoming tariff application and determination process is very, very important. The Consumer Advisory Committee on Utilities, CACU, has always taken an active interest in the tariff review process and makes submissions on the application to the OUR. CACU member Devon Gale will outline what will be his organization's role. Devon.
Thank you, Liz. Good evening. As you would be aware, the OUR is not a consumer advocacy organization. However, the CACU was established to provide the OUR with a forum through which it can receive consumers' views on broad regulatory issues, as well as issues that are as their perspective on the issues affecting the relationship between the utilities companies and consumers. Therefore, the CACU considers issues referred to it by the office and provide timely feedback, opinion, and recommendations as appropriate. We also act as a gauge to public opinion and advise the OUR on issues that will impact the OUR's relationship with the public. Also, we act as an advisory body to the office and bring issues of public concern to the office, as well as offering solutions to specific issues. Also, we advise the office on the developments of regulatory policies, particularly in those areas that are of direct consumer concerns. We also review the OUR's Consumer Affairs Department's quarterly reports and advise the office of the implications for customer service which might arise therefrom. We also publish reports of its deliberations and activities on a regular basis. For the upcoming NWC tariff review, the CACU's focus will be to ensure that consumers' feedback, views, and inputs are represented during the review. CACU will be closely reviewing the NWC's technical and financial performance over the last 5 years, conduct a detailed examination and analysis of their submission, as well as provide our best assessment and advice to the regulator on a fair and just determination. We will also be reviewing the status of the NWC's infrastructure projects, especially the non-revenue water projects. The overall and guarantee standard will also be reviewed alongside the quality of the company's customer service delivery, and of course, the customer charter. CACU will be encouraging you, the consumers, to come out in your numbers and attend the public consultations in your respective parishes. And I do expect to see you at that time. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Devon Gale from the CACU. And Devon just talked about the consultation process, which I'd like to go into for a few minutes because that is an important part of our analysis of the application that we will get from the NWC. So, why consult? In carrying out our duties as an independent regulator, the OUR has been charged to operate in a transparent, accountable, and non-discriminatory manner. Public consultation is one way in which the OUR discharges its responsibility, and of course, your feedback, consumer feedback, helps us to guide some of the decisions taken. So the consultation for the NWC's application mainly takes place in 3 ways. We have town hall meetings where we go into several communities and we host meetings with the residents. We have business meetings and we have written submissions. For this particular process, we'll be holding 6 meetings. They will take place in Kingston and St. Andrew, in Portmore, in Clarendon, in St. Thomas, St. James, and in Portland. The town hall meeting format is very simple. We will have brief remarks from the OUR, and then we'll ask NWC to make a presentation to their customers, where they will outline what are the major aspects of the application they have submitted to the OUR, why is it that they're requesting what they're requesting from the OUR, and also to talk about the parish plans. What are the plans that they have for your particular parish? And of course, question and answer session. And this will constitute the bulk of the consultation because we recognize that we want to hear from you. So we want you to come out in your numbers, and you will get the notification in short order as to where we will be and the date. Business meetings, we're planning 3 business meetings to include NWC's business customers. Some of their largest block of customers are business customers, professional bodies, civic groups, and consumer advocacy groups. Those are very, very important. So we'll be having those in Kingston and St. Andrew, in St. James, and in Manchester. We recognized, however, that maybe you can't make it to a town hall meeting or a business meeting that we're having, but you do want to make a submission about what you think about the application that has been submitted. And so we are allowing you to do so via email. We have a special email that has been set up, NWC Tariff @our.org.jm. If you forget it, just call us. We'll provide it again. If you want to send us through traditional mail, we are located at 36 Trafalgar Road, Kingston 10, 3rd floor. That's the PCJ building in New Kingston. And of course, you will be able to have access to the full application that the NWC has submitted. It will be on our website. And we also do a summary of it, so it's easy for you to get a good grasp of what they're asking for in a very condensed version. We will be posting that on our website as well, and our website is our.org.jm. And as soon as that is done, we will notify you that it's there. Now, how will I know when consultations will be held? We'll be advertising in the mass media, the television, radio stations, and the newspapers. Social media, please log on to us. We are on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and LinkedIn. We're also on Google Business. If you type in OUR in Google, then the information will come up as well. And of course, as I said before, it will be on our website. Now we're open for questions. Again, a reminder that we have a WhatsApp number, 876-316-2647. Let's go again, 876-316-2647. It's on your screen. Or if you're watching us on the YouTube page, you can send in your comments there. Or if you're watching us on Facebook Live, you can send in your comments there as well. So we look forward to getting the questions that you have for us. We already are getting some, so we are very, very happy for that. But I'm going to throw some questions to my panelists, because the first thing I want to ask, which I don't think we had mentioned, it is, why 5 years? What's the magic? That's a magic number, Cedric? Why 5 years? Every 5 years they are allowed to submit this voluminous application?
Well, 5 years is more or less a standard that is observed internationally. A lot of countries use 5 years because it's the kind of time period where it is not too long, neither is it too short, so it allows ample time for tariff applications to be done without putting too much burden on the regulator.
Okay. So how long does the process typically take? I saw that you went through acceptance of the application, etc., but how long does it take the OUR to assess the application?
Typically, it takes 3 months between the time when we receive the application to when the determination is made. But it is a very involved process.
I know, because you said a term, and I want to throw this one to Sashana. Acceptance of the application. That's very, very important to when the 90-day period starts, for example. And I think it's 90 to 120 days or thereabout. So what did Cedric mean by acceptance of the application?
Well, once the tariff is with us, then we'll go through the content to make sure that it satisfies all the filing requirements that we have. So for example, we would not accept if it's under confidentiality seal, because we would want to put it out to the public for them to consult or give their feedback on the content. We'll also look to see if it's well structured, if there's a business plan, if it's accompanied by a financial statement, and so on and so forth. Then after looking through to see if all the filing requirements have been satisfied, then we'd formally notify the NWC of our acceptance. Also, the public will be notified of us having the application. And then within that time, the 90 days will start. Sometimes it may take 120 days, depending on the things that are really requested. Because sometimes a tariff will come in, and it do have some very new developments that would really take in-depth analysis and consulting with the commission, consulting with the public, and then we'll make our determination.
Mm-hmm.
I should say though, Liz,
Yes.
that acceptance, we do that within a 10-day period
Mm-hmm.
after getting the application.
Provided we get everything that we need to assess the application.
Yeah, those things that are absolutely necessary.
Yes.
We might not get everything because there is a process where you can request additional information on the way, but at least some things must be there in order for it to be accepted.
Okay. Colette, in your presentation, you mentioned things like guaranteed standards. I think quite a few of our viewers will know what guaranteed standards are, but I'll still ask you to give us some examples. And performance targets, what exactly, that's my first question to you, what exactly are performance targets? Give me some examples.
Great. Liz, similar to the guaranteed standards, the performance target specifies the service levels that the NWC ought to attain in its service delivery. For example, when a service disruption is planned, there is a 24-hour period within which the NWC ought to notify its customers that they intend to disrupt the service so that the customers can make other arrangements with respect to water. The performance targets, and I must also say that the performance targets is another term for overall standards. It used to be called overall standards. Right. But in the NWC's 2008 tariff application, they submitted a name change, calling it performance targets, and we accepted and approved it. So in addition, another area that is looked at under the performance target speaks to water quality. The levels in terms of the tests that are conducted on on potable water that we consume, they must conform to World Health Organization standards as well as our Ministry of Health water standards that are set for the NWC. So those are some of the areas that are covered under the performance targets. Additionally, while the guaranteed standards offer a compensation mechanism when there's a breach of a standard, the performance targets do not do that.
But we do monitor them, because I was going on to that other question. I'll soon come back to you about the guaranteed standards, because they do need some examples of it. But I know that in our quarterly performance reports that we do capture reports given to us from NWC in it. For example, when we talk about notification of water outages and so on. So we do get regular reports.
Yes,
so that's one of the ways in which we monitor whether they are in compliance.
Right, and that is what we do essentially with the performance targets. We ensure that the NWC performs in keeping with the requirements of the targets.
So we don't just put it in a determination notice. Our decisions, ladies and gentlemen, are called determination notices. So we don't just put that in our decision to say these are the performance targets. We actively monitor whether or not they are conforming.
Correct.
Guaranteed standards.
Okay, so guaranteed standards also prescribe service levels that the NWC ought to meet in delivering its service. For instance, over the years, customers have complained that, look, we don't want to be getting consecutive estimated bills. And so to try and address that situation, we have a guaranteed standard that restricts the NWC to sending no more than 2 consecutive estimated bills where they have access to a meter. That is important.
Yeah.
Without there being a penalty. Additionally, we stipulate a standard that requires the NWC to notify its customers if it conducts a meter change exercise at a premises. The NWC needs to indicate to the customer that the meter was changed. That notification needs to include the serial number of the new meter, the reading on the meter that is being removed. All of that information ought to be provided to the customer.
So during the review of the application by the NWC, we review the guarantee standards, and we also review the performance targets.
That is correct, Liz.
I have a question, Cedric, I'm going to throw it to you. Devon, I'm coming to you shortly because I want to get more into what the CACU does as part of the tariff review process. A question, Cedric. Can the regulators, OUR, mandate NWC to adapt renewable energy, etc., for cost reduction? Can we mandate NWC to do that? That's a question from a viewer.
Not really, and I tell you why. While the OUR is interested in efficiency and require efficiency from NWC, we are not in the business of micromanaging. So we'll say you need to be efficient, and we might set efficiency targets that your costs need to be reduced every year by 5% or 3%, and we put that in the rate, so the rates will go down. But we won't specifically tell them, this is what you need to do in order to reduce your efficiency. All right? So that is how we operate. We'll set the tariff in a way that if they are not efficient, then they'll suffer loss.
Yes.
But we're not going to tell them that this is what you must do.
So we don't do that, full stop.
No, we don't usually do that.
Devon, CACU as a consumer advocacy body is very integral in the review of an application such as this. And obviously it's not the only such application that we receive. But talk to me a bit more about when you say CACU is involved, what's the level of involvement?
Well, I mean, basically we will review the financial and technical performance of the NWC over the last 5 years to see if they have been basically doing what they had committed to doing in the last review period. We'll also be going out on the consultations to get direct feedback from the consumers to see how they feel about what has been happening over the last 5 years, basically. And we also review on a quarterly basis the Consumer Affairs Department's reports. As you would quite know that there's a Consumer Affairs Division within the OUR, and they would have been reviewing the consumers' reports that have been collected from consumers during that period. So we do that on a quarterly basis and basically give feedback to the OUR as to what we think should happen as a result of those reviews.
Yeah. Just a reminder to our viewers that the number is on your screen. We're going to put it on your screen again if it's not there. 876-316-2647. If you're on our YouTube page, you can send in a question via that, as well as if you're on our Facebook page watching via Facebook Live, you can also just type in a question and we will definitely get that. Another question that came in, NWC also needs, I think, Sashana, this was perhaps during when you were making your presentation they're referring to, because you had mounted the bill. So they say NWC also need to record the charge per litre on our bills. This is not shown. There are a lot of things on the bill. I don't know if that is just too much to add on the bill.
But there is a block structure to the back of the bill.
To the back of the bill.
that has the different charges per litre. So it's between 0 to 14,000 litres. So that would mean 1,000 litres would be charged at the $103. 2,000 would be charged at that rate as well. So if you look at the back of your bill, there is a charge per litre and per gallon for both water and sewage services.
So it is
they're
on
in
the
blocks.
back of the bill.
Yeah,
Okay.
blocks.
Cedric, in your presentation, you had mentioned some factors that were important that you look for in the application and what we pride ourselves on. You talk about elements such as reliability, objectivity, recency, relevance. Talk to us a bit more about those elements.
Well, these are some of the principles on which we use to guide our decision in coming up with a determination for the tariff. So there's the whole question of objectivity. You might go to a consultation, and at that consultation meeting, somebody get up and say, well, you know, I haven't been getting water for the last week from NWC, and on that basis, NWC should not get a tariff increase.
Yes.
So our question is that objective? Given all of the costs that NWC is currently facing, given the services they are providing, is that reasonable? And so along that line, we'll have to look at all of that and come up to something that is objective and say this is how it ought to be. Question like reliability. The information that NWC puts into its application, those cannot be, and to use a word that I used early on, it cannot be fake. It has to be genuine.
Yes.
So when we see numbers that do not appear to correspond with what we know from the history of NWC, we will have to probe into those numbers and satisfy ourselves that those numbers are in fact reliable. It is something that we can hold on to. It is something that we can use as the basis of arriving at a determination. There is, I think I mentioned recency, and all that is saying is don't bother bring no stale information and give to us because that
Yes.
won't work. We need
Yes.
current information, and those two are connected as well.
Yes.
Relevance and recency, those things are connected. So these are some of the things that we consider to be absolutely important in arriving at a decision, in arriving at a determination that is fair, reasonable, and just.
We put a lot of emphasis, viewers, on consultation, the consultation process. But we have heard the criticism, and I'm throwing it out to the panel. What's the purpose? We have already made up our minds about the application process. Is a consultation process important? Colette.
I believe that it is, Elizabeth, because it provides an opportunity for the NWC to speak directly to its customers, to tell them exactly what it is that they are applying for and why, and also to hear the concerns of their consumers so that they can also think about measures that can be implemented to address those concerns.
But
So
do we take their concerns into consideration?
definitely
when we
do,
are-
because those, as I mentioned in my presentation, the concerns raised may bring to the fore some emerging issues that may have far-reaching impact that will ultimately need measures to be put in place to address them by us. And so those concerns are highlighted in our final determination, along with any measure that we have decided to put in place to fix, to remedy those issues.
And Cedric, I know when your technical team does this analysis, I know it also goes on some of these consultations.
Yes, we do.
Yeah.
And we listen to the concerns because invariably what happens is it is not just people present who are talking about their own personal issues. The fact that there's a leak on the road that NWC isn't correcting. But there are people who will speak to some very technical issues, you know, that they have observed that the level of non-revenue water or losses is very high, and they might come up with suggestions and ideas as to what ought to be done, or emphasize the importance for the OUR to be very strict or very stern on some of the things. So it is always important for people to attend these meetings to hear their views, because we do not ignore them, for sure.
That's very, very important, because I've put on the screen again the parishes that we want to have our public consultations. I hope you'll be able to see it. We plan to have 6 town hall meetings: Kingston and St. Andrew, in Portmore, in Clarendon, St. Thomas, Portland, and St. James. And we're also having 3 other meetings with professional bodies, business interests, etc. And those will take place in Kingston and St. Andrew, St. James, and Manchester. And it's very, very important that we get your input, because in the past we have got some very, very useful inputs from members of the public. We also, I'm putting also on the screen how you can make your submissions, because in addition to a special email address that we have set up, nwctariff@our.org.jm, you can also go on our website, download the full application once we have published it, and you will be notified once we have published it, and you can read it. We'll also be including a summary, because it is a very large document, but we'll highlight the major parts of it in a summary document for you to quickly go through, and if it is that you want to make reference to the bigger document, you can do so. Or if it is that you're a traditionalist and you like literally putting pen to paper, you can also send us a mail at 36 Trafalgar Road, PCJ Building, 3rd floor, and that's Kingston 10. So we invite you to communicate with us, because we really, really, really want to hear from you. We also know that persons like social media, so we're on the major social media platforms. We're on Facebook, we're on Twitter, we are on LinkedIn, and we are on Instagram. All you have to do is put in the name Office of Utilities Regulation, and we are there. Who assesses, Cedric, in the OUR, the NWC? So we have the consumer unit, which Colette will be dealing with the consumer aspects, the guaranteed standards, the performance targets, and so on. But once we get an application, who are the persons within the OUR, not names, the positions, who are those who actually assess it? We know Sashana is a senior regulatory analyst, so she will be having a key role in it.
Well, essentially we have a set of analysts which are comprised of economists and engineers who go through the technical data, who go through the requests thoroughly and assesses. But then what is interesting is that even though we as economists and engineers will come to a conclusion, the lawyers have to look at it as well.
Yes.
Because it is all well and good when you, as a regulator or as an analyst, come up with some solution or some idea as to how to deal with a particular problem. But we, as a regulator, we are creatures of the law, so we'll have to ensure that we are within the perimeter of the regulations within which we operate.
So we have our analysts, we have our economists, we have our engineers, and we have our lawyers.
You got it.
And they all have a significant
You got
input.
it, kid.
On the CACU side, Devon, I mean, who assesses it on the CACU side? I know you also have the expertise on
right,
the
so
committee.
we have membership comprised of various persons. I mean, we have professional bodies, we have consumer advocacy persons. And so we basically, as a group, we will analyze and we will then Also, based on our consultations or the consultation that we attend, we'll get feedback from some of the persons who attend those consultations. So we pretty much do similarly what the OUR does. I mean, probably not to the extent that you guys do it, but we get technical and financial performance reports, and we will act on that based on what we feel is a fair determination. We will give our advice based on those factors.
Okay. So as we prepare to close, ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you for joining us. It was very, very important that we had you listening in. You can always go back and watch it on our YouTube page. I also want to thank our panelists today. Cedric Wilson is Director of Regulation, Policy, Monitoring and Enforcement at the OUR. Senior Regulatory Analyst, Sashana Miller, Member of the Consumer Advisory Committee on Utilities, Devon Gale, and Consumer Affairs Specialist in charge of Policy at the OUR, Call It Good. My name is Elizabeth Bennett Marsh. I'm the Public Education Specialist at the Office of Utilities Regulation. Thank you so much for joining us, and until the next time, take care.